I'm Rick Nelson, and on behalf of the AASHTO Committee on Maintenance, their Maintenance Operations Technical Working Group, and the Winter Weather Management Technical Service Program, formerly known as SICOP, SICOP Talks Winter Ops is proud to host this fourth National Winter Maintenance and Road Weather Briefing. Now, these briefings give organizations working in the severe weather and maintenance operations space an opportunity to showcase their efforts to help you achieve your winter maintenance and operations mission. This briefing today features Federal Highway Administration's Road Weather Management Program, and with us is Jeremy McGuffey. Hi, Jeremy. It's good to see you.
Howdy, Rick, and yeah, it's good to be here again.
Jeremy, before we get started with the briefing, tell us a little about yourself and your responsibilities there at FHWA.
Absolutely. I'm definitely no stranger to hanging out with you here, Rick, but I would like to mention that I'm new to Federal Highway Administration. I'm filling the Road Weather Management Program Manager role. However, I come from a state DOT background. I actually recently transitioned from Indiana DOT to this new position, so long time spent in the road weather sphere.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Jeremy, the work you were doing there at Indiana was really spectacular. It was great work, and we look forward to you carrying that over to FHWA.
Absolutely, I'm super excited about it, to be honest.
So, Jeremy, with that, you want to give us a briefing on what's been happening there at the Road Weather Management Program?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. So today I'm just going to do a brief overview of kind of the road weather management program, more so tailored to SICOP and some of the snow and ice stuff that we're working on our end. But there's some other stuff that you may be interested in that isn't necessarily snow and ice related. That's another big challenge too, stepping into this role is in Indiana, our biggest events were mostly flooding or snow and ice related. So kind of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and realizing that there's so many other severe weather events out there and weather concerns. So I'm constantly having to readjust and reevaluate, my audience depending on who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we already did a quick introduction, but my name is Jeremy McGuffey. I'm formerly with the Indiana DOT. I spent 8 years with Indiana, so I had a mix of experience in highway maintenance and road weather specifically. I got a chance to work on a lot of cool projects, like you mentioned there in Indiana. But I will say some of my favorites were our AVL program. During my time, I was able to get AVL deployed across our entire fleet of 1,100 trucks. And towards the end there, we began expanding that program into heavy equipment as well. A lot of devices, a lot of connectivity, and that's a common topic amongst a lot of states now that we're starting to see. I also worked to modernize the ARWIS network. When I came in, things were there's a lot of old school sensors. There were some sensors that were installed way back in the 90s. So we worked on upgrading all those sensors, moving to more simple solutions, and we were one of the first states to start co-locating ARWIS systems with our DMS or ITS infrastructure instead of on standalone towers. I also, one of the other things that I'm proud of that helped, kind of transition me to Federal Highway here was the deployment of Pathfinder. So I led the deployment there in Indiana, along with the Indianapolis office of the National Weather Service. And right now they're in their 3rd year now. So aside from all of that, I partnered with Purdue University on quite a few really cool projects. One of them that's been making the waves here recently is a really low-cost LiDAR-based salt stockpile measurement tool. Before I left, we were able to get that installed in a few buildings, and they're testing it out. And I think that's going to be a really, really interesting technology to keep an eye on as the next couple of years as they get that through the test phase and hopefully make it available to anybody that wants that. And then also the other one that I'm super proud of is automated liquid and granular application. We installed the system on our brine tankers, a few years ago, and we're able to begin working towards installing it on granular applications with our dump trucks as well. And then also, lastly, I just want to point out that I served on the Clear Roads and MDSS pooled funds representing Indiana, and it's also where I got my experience there with TRB. So I was able to participate with both the road weather and the winter maintenance committees, and now I am on the winter maintenance committee as a member. So definitely helped to dip my toes in the water before jumping into the role here at Federal Highway. I know a lot of people may not be familiar with the road weather management program here at Federal Highway. So I have a brief, slide that gives some brief overview. Things are constantly changing here, so it's always helpful to present on this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that we focus on are innovations, technology, and knowledge transfer. In the graphic that I have there on the slide kind of is to help illustrate this point. There's a lot of cool things that come out of these different groups, whether it's universities, state DOTs, or even non-DOT agencies. This could be National Weather Service, could be local agencies, or even private industry for that matter. But our goal here is to help with that transfer of ideas and that transfer of knowledge between those entities. There's a couple of times in my previous position at Indiana that, I would have an idea or I would be working on something and only to realize that it's already either been done or somebody else is working on it at the same time.
Right.
So that's, something that's very, very important to me is being able to help promote that, help to transfer those ideas and technology and whatnot to people who may need it. So that's why I put that as number one up there. On top of that, researching new ideas and practices. We hold our stakeholder meetings once a year. We do roundtables. We meet one-on-one with states, and we get a lot of good ideas. And being able to, take federal dollars and push that through the research program is important. There's so many good ideas out there, and we got to prioritize and figure out what those emerging ideas and best practices are. So the next one, keeping pace with and obviously getting ahead of changing technology and infrastructure. And I wasn't going to bring it up, but something that I've been focused on here recently that you may be familiar with is this book called Where the Weather Meets the Road.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they're really old school. So I've kind of been going down the rabbit hole of trying to understand the early stages of the road weather management program. That book's almost 20 years old now, and kind of where we're at now, and then where do we need to be another 20 years from now? So it's not just about keeping pace with, but it's getting out ahead of technology. Things are constantly changing.
right.
This book, whenever it was written, we weren't talking about automated vehicles like we see them today. So
But it had some pretty interesting visionary ideas with it. Sort of it painted this picture of what it might look like, and quite honestly, we're getting pretty darn close. I mean,
absolutely,
it's taken 20 years to get there, but the folks that worked on that, they were pretty visionary when they were thinking about what a good winter maintenance program might look like.
absolutely, and I think that could be another discussion topic for another day because there's so many thoughts that I have as to where we thought we'd be, where we are now, and where we need to be, in the future. And I've only just begun to scratch the surface. So, yeah, it's a really good book. And it sets the foundation for essentially everything that we're doing these days. So, and then lastly, outreach to stakeholders, super important. Getting people what they need when they need it, and just assisting the state DOTs in general. So that's my primary focuses. I'll get into some of the initiatives that we're working on right now too. Big one that we've been talking about quite a bit is adaptive route optimization, or AARO. Side note, another big thing that we're big on here at Federal Highways is acronyms. So Excuse me, I'm learning that too. But anyways, Arrow, it's so with typical route optimizations, we look at existing routes and we try and just make those individual routes more efficient than they were before. However, if you look at adaptive, or some people call it dynamic route optimization, there's a couple of additional things you can think of that can feed into that. Just instead of looking at a one-to-one route optimization, one of the other things that's been considered is obviously during a winter storm, for example, you might see traffic backup in areas, and adaptive route optimization. One of the goals there would be to get the trucks around that traffic so that they can continue their route. So it's about making smarter routing, more real-time based routing, and something else that's come up that could feed into this is um, a truck leaves their home garage, their home unit, fills up on salt, and they may not make it back. A typical route, it might take them a couple of hours, but they're doing essentially one loop and coming back. They could, in theory, stay out longer and fill up at multiple garages and have a much longer route.
Hmm.
So it reduces the deadhead, and so that's just a couple of use cases there. I think the whole idea behind adaptive route optimization is to do something closer to real time. It's not just a set it and forget it type of optimization. So right now, with that project, we are finishing up the concept of operations, or ConOps, you may hear, and requirements documents. One of the biggest findings is obviously, since there are a lot more, again, it's in the name, since it is adaptive and more dynamic, there is more significant infrastructure and data requirements involved. Phase 2 in this project is going to be evaluating use cases like some of those that I mentioned, and then the requirements to get those running. Another project we're working on is integrated modeling for road condition predictions, or IMRCP for short. This has uses in both the winter operations sphere and just road weather in general. We have been testing it out in a few states that are more winter-based uses, but here recently we've been working with some southern states to get them ready for hurricane season.
Right.
So Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, they've all installed this program, and they've been working together in more of a regional aspect to get them prepared. The whole point behind IMRCP is we get a lot of real-time data as far as traffic. You can get on Google at any point in time, and roads are color-coded with how bad traffic is, and it gives you a picture of what's going on out there. But with the IMRCP, the goal is to provide more predictive and future conditions. So you can use this tool. It does the exact same thing, but it tells you, 2 hours from now, 5 hours from now, this is what traffic's going to look like based on the forecast. So whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a storm, snowstorm event, those forecasts feed into the tool, and they'll give you predictive traffic conditions. And it's not just limited to the forecast either. It takes actual traffic, during different times of the day, and uses that information to build a model. Next is so automated vehicles and adverse weather. Not going to go too deep into this one, but essentially, we did a report on or a study on how adverse weather affects automated vehicles and AV use here in the U.S. Obviously, it's a big concern. Our findings will be published here soon in the final report. It's been completed, and once that's out, I will pass the information along to everyone, and we'll get it posted onto the road weather website. Last one here on the list is the climate change risk assessment tool and guide. This project started not too long ago, so we're kind of in the early stages still, but the goal is to build a tool. It's going to be more of an Excel-based tool, but it's going to look at different climate risks and different asset types, and how DOTs or just any agency in general can build a more robust and resilient network based on these different climate risks. So whether it's flooding concerns or snow and ice concerns, you give it some information and it essentially will feed you back, some things to watch out for and some things to plan for. So more to come on that too. Right now, we've finished up kind of scoping out what this tool is going to look like, and the contractor is building the draft version, and then we'll get to test it. We'll have a few DOTs in that testing of the draft tool as well before we move on to a final product. Some more things here that we're doing. So this is more on the training and tech support side. So the weather data environment's been really big for us. It's very important. As I've been reading back into the older programs and the older documents, it's kind of a continuation of Claris and the IMO. The weather data environment, as it is now, is the host of all of the RWIS data and ESS data from around the U.S. We have nearly every state participating. If you go to the website, you can see there's an observation map that anybody can access, and they can see all RWIS observations across the U.S. Minus just one or two states. So that's very important. I think as we build more network-wide tools and more regional tools, rather than just an individual state building a tool set, that's going to come into play. So that I do want to call out, the contract's been renewed for another 2 years, so we've committed to continuing that
good
development. So on the tech support side, Pathfinder, as I said earlier, it's important to me. I was able to get that deployed in Indiana, but being able to focus on getting it deployed in other states now is equally important. We have here recently, we've held workshops in Louisiana, and we're about to hold one in Alabama. Maine is also in their first year, so they just started. So there's a lot of states that are joining now, but we're also always looking for anyone that is interested in learning about Pathfinder, or even if they have a Pathfinder program and they're looking for support, we're available. Pathfinder isn't just a winter tool or a winter program. It's for any road weather needs.
Right.
And the premise behind Pathfinder obviously is to increase that collaboration between state DOTs and the National Weather Service. So for the IMO program, I do want to call out that there's still stick grants available. So you can use those for any IMO purpose, and I can help with that too. A lot of states here recently in the last couple of years have been using it to expand or purchase RWIS devices, or even MARWIS. There's a couple of use cases there too. So there is still money there for that. We've probably not heard this in a while, but the capability maturity frameworks, the CMFs, those still exist. We've been working to revamp that program, and I'll be pushing some more information out about that here soon. But if a state DOT is interested in performing a capability maturity framework, we're more than willing to come out and support that. And then one other thing that happened recently, National Highway Institute has a road weather course that they posted. It's road weather management, or fundamentals of road weather management. I think on their website it has a couple other words like principles of road weather management or something to that degree, but if you search road weather in their course catalog, it'll pop up. It's a really good course. It's only like 3 hours long, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're new to the practice or even if you're a long-term practitioner.
Jeremy, is that NHI class, is that an on-demand class, or is that a instructor-led class?
Yeah, so it is on demand. You can get on there and do it at any time. Just register for an account and you can do it whenever. So if you or anyone else have interest in any of this stuff, like I said there at the bottom, just reach out to me. I may be new, but I'm trying to get everybody else the support that they need, and there's a lot of good stuff going on, and I just want to get it out there. So.
Right.
So another important piece of our business is obviously the outreach piece. Aside from building cool products and trying to transfer technology, we try and perform outreach quite a bit, just to keep people connected, and do trainings as well. So some things that we're working on. We do have a webinar series that we'll be resuming in the fall. I remember a couple years ago, at least, I presented at one of these, and it's a good opportunity to really target specific, ideas or specific technologies and get those in front of other DOTs. So if there's something cool that people are working on, uh, reach out to me if you're willing to present on it. Otherwise, I may be reaching out to you, and it, we we do this as a matter of getting that one state DOT that may be looking for a specific technology or a use case or something, and getting that in front of them. So could be anything, could be material science, could be new technologies, new equipment that you're using, stuff like that, or new ways of doing things. So that's resuming in the fall. We have our roundtables; those will be DOTs only. Um, those are going to be happening this fall as well. I know we try and do at least once a year some roundtables. So I don't know yet the agenda that we're going to be focusing on yet. We're kind of building that at the moment. But once those get completed, we'll be sending those invites out to DOTs. Newsletters also we're going to be resuming in the fall. A lot of this stuff coming in the fall because it's going to be me. So I
Right.
just started. So we're trying to start some of this stuff up. Pooled fund studies and committees. Myself and David Johnson were both pretty involved in all of the different groups. Historically on Clear Roads and Aurora pooled funds, the TRB road weather management and road weather and winter maintenance committees. David's a member of one, and I'm a member of the other. PIARC, obviously SICOP, Rick.
Yep.
And then here recently we've met with the MDSS team to discuss participating with them as well. So we're really involved there, and the way that I phrase it to everybody is we're kind of we're keeping our fingers on the pulse of things to understand what's going on in each of these groups, because we're also, the theme behind our group is that we're also the cross pollinators. So if we get a good idea in MDSS, something that's applicable to Clear Roads, we can go to that next meeting, we can present that idea, or we can, back and forth. And I think that's going to help us from performing the same research over and over, or some of that research that we have performed might help further additional research. We have some publications coming out. I actually have another slide on that, but we have quite a few that are in the pipeline to get published here soon on a variety of topics. The bipartisan infrastructure law, we've been committed money through the BIL to our program. It's going to involve a program that we just kicked off called MDODE, or Managing Disruptions to Operations Data Environment, which this is probably the first time a lot of people are hearing it, but it's going to be essentially a larger scale version of the weather data environment. So at some point you may see something official coming out on that, but I anticipate it's going to be a very intensive process to build this, as it's going to involve much more than just RWIS data. It's going to involve a lot of work zone data, a lot of traffic data. Just the goal is to get this all in one place so we can start building more robust systems. But the big point there is that through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we did get some money allocated to build this, to stand this up. So look for more information on that coming soon. We do have an AVL forum too that we've been doing for a while now, and that was originally hosted by Ray Murphy. but here recently we've been having state DOTs lead those discussions. In fact, our next meeting is tomorrow, so hopefully some interesting things will come from that. But the major thing that I'm hoping for right now is, prior to me leaving Indiana, we had discussed kicking off an AVL pooled fund to further research AVL technologies and to kind of move AVL in the future.
Hmm.
So that's going to be something that we're pushing, is to see if there's any state DOTs that want to kind of pick up the torch and lead that potential pooled fund. All right, and so these are some of the publications that I'd mentioned. These have all been published here recently on a variety of topics. If you go to our website, you can find even more. But like I said, there's so many things that we cover, from flooding to hurricane response. There's even one that came out about the upcoming solar eclipses that are going to be happening both later this year and early next year, as well as a ton of the snow and ice stuff that everybody loves.
Yeah.
So those are there. Feel free to hop on the road weather page, Federal Highways road weather page, to check those out. So we also have here recently, actually last month, we did our annual stakeholder meeting for the road weather management program. It took place in Kansas City, and we had a pretty decent turnout. I want to say 26 or 27 states showed up. This is the first one that we've done since, I believe, 2019. I only remember that because I was in the middle of a sandstorm in Phoenix at night whenever that meeting was taking place. So yeah, it's a very good way for community practitioners to get involved and to meet one another outside of the pooled funds, because the pooled funds are a little bit more targeted,
Hmm.
whereas the stakeholder meeting features people from all aspects of road weather. So just a few highlights I wanted to touch on from that meeting. So just some things that are being worked on too. Colorado announced that they're going to be implementing some variable speed limits along the I-70 corridor, specifically in Glenwood Canyon. I believe it's like a 13 or 14-mile stretch. But the goal, and nobody, this isn't new, but I think that it's very important. The goal is obviously, as that snow starts falling or as the roads get a little bit more treacherous, uh, they can preemptively get cars to slow down before the traffic causes them to slow down, or before an accident happens that slows things down. If you can get ahead of the problem, I think that that's it's very important. I think I already mentioned this, but Indiana mentioned that they were working on their LiDAR stockpile measuring devices. Again, I think that this has huge implications across the board for all the DOTs. This was a Clear Roads project back in between 2019 and I think 2021 to look at low cost stockpile measuring devices. So as that technology further develops, the goal is to have that available to anyone that wants it. There was a panel discussion on NTCIP 1204. Not too much that came out of it, but a lot of states are still operating in version 3. Currently, we're in version 4 of that, which, if you're not familiar with 1204, it's the kind of RWIS ESS standards.
Right.
And something else to call out is we're actually working on version 5. So getting everybody up to speed and up to date on that's important. Version 5 is going to include a big piece of that update is going to be focused on like cybersecurity. So it'll be important to keep an eye on those changes as they occur. Minnesota mentioned that they've been conducting tests of various slurry mixes and combinations at Camp Ripley. There's a closed course that they have up there, but they have a really cool way of mimicking traffic on the slurry and just essentially driving a ton of cars over the mix after it's been put down to kind of mimic what traffic would do and impact on the mixes. But Joe Hunnicky had presented on this. It was really cool, the data that they had found as far as what works, what doesn't work, and what the best rates are. So if you're interested in any of that information on slurry combinations and what they've found, I think Joe Haneke with Minnesota or MnDOT would be a good resource there. They mentioned that one of their more important focuses with that project is to just overall to reduce the amount of chlorides, and that discussion in itself is a huge topic.
Right.
So that's kind of what's driving all of that work that they're doing. And more broadly, why a lot of states are starting to switch more to liquids and slurries and trying to reduce their dependency on granular. Wyoming DOT, they've got this cool collaboration that they have going with counties right now to route motorists or reroute motorists onto suitable county roads when WYDOT highways are closed. If you're familiar, WYDOT does closures in the wintertime when the road conditions get bad. It helps to provide an outlet or a suitable alternative for larger trucks, semis in particular, so that they're not just turning onto any road and getting stuck. So they have this cool collaboration program with the counties that is helping to avoid any of that. So also from the stakeholder meeting, we had not just the highlights, but also some areas of concern. And a lot of these are already well known, but I think that throwing them out there and getting them out there is going to help. Maybe it'll spark something in somebody's mind that this might be something we should research, or this might be something we can look into. So obviously the big one that a lot of states mentioned that they're struggling with right now is staffing. You can't get around it. Everybody struggles with staffing. So Clear Roads did a research project, or more of a study a couple of years ago, to look at how can we get the next generation involved into highway maintenance and winter maintenance in that matter. So that's, every state deals with that issue, and I don't think that there's a good solution, but we can't just kind of let it sit there and fester. We have to figure out what can we do to entice younger generations and new people into the roles. Snow fencing, came up. I was surprised by this one, but after looking into it, I realized that there's a lot of stuff going on there. One of the thoughts that was mentioned was, we don't do snow fencing very often anymore because oftentimes it requires us to go on private property, and less people are interested in letting us install snow fencing on their property. And then the other one that seems prevalent is that we're losing a lot of knowledge in the winter maintenance field, and due to retirement or just people moving on in general. And snow fencing is one of them. It seems like it's more of one of those specialized knowledge bases. And I'll be honest, we didn't have a good snow fencing program in Indiana because of that. I was actually towards the end of my time there working to kind of hash out what that might look like. But that's not just limited to Indiana. A lot of states are feeling that pain, and a lot of states deal with drifting snow. So some course or some sort of training might help offset that. The other hot topic, friction. How can it be used? A lot of states have been collecting friction data for a long time, and as far as I know, there's really no good program that takes the friction data and gives you actionable items based on that friction data. So the big question right now is, okay, we're gathering this, but what can we do with it? And again, that's actually another Clear Roads project. And I know that the MDSS Build Fund's been looking at it for a while as well, as how can we build that friction into the model. So there's a couple of things that are ongoing, and I'm kind of excited about where that takes us. This also came up during the stakeholder meeting, and I promise it wasn't me, but I remember, Rick, you and I had talked about this as well at one point, is there's a lot of research that happens out there, and it's all over the place as to where you can get access to it. In fact, there's a couple of things that I've been looking for recently, and either I can't find the research anymore, or it's not on a convenient website. You go to TRID
Hmm.
looking for something, you go to Rosa P and look for something, or you go to the road weather management page and look for something. But there's also a lot of state DOTs that have their own internal research programs, and they don't post that stuff anywhere except for on their pages.
Right.
So you look for something and you can't always find it. The idea has been floated is to have a centralized winter maintenance or road weather research database. And I believe that is something that the American Meteorology Society, of all places, was interested in working on that. So Curtis Walker
Hmm.
had presented on that idea, and I think he's spearheading that. Um, Big one also, I think I mentioned this with Minnesota and what they're doing with their slurry testing, but chloride reduction in general. A lot of states are interested in doing that, not only for the cost savings, but to reduce the amount of chlorides going into the environment. It's a major
Right.
pollutant. We put roughly 20 million tons of salt down every year, so it's only, it makes sense to stop that practice, or at least to reduce it as much as possible, just to be good stewards of the environment. And then lastly, crowdsourced data, and by that I mean stuff that we're getting from passenger vehicles out there on the roadway, if we can. Google already gets the speed and everything, but additional data such as hard braking, and some vehicles actually do have friction data or temp sensors or wheel slippage, stuff like that. Windshield wiper data, lane keep assist. That stuff. Some states do have access to, and it'd be interesting to see what we can do with that, to help further the program or to make our systems smarter. And lastly, here's our contact information. Our team is quite small, despite all the cool things that we're working on. So, you have David Johnson, who's, up until I was hired, he was kind of leading things by himself. The team's actually grown here recently. That's why I say MDODE team lead. Because we've absorbed some additional functions. So David's over not only road weather, but he's over traffic incident management uh, and also work zones. So he's got quite a bit under his belt. So his
Hmm.
time's going to be a little bit shorter on this side of things as well. But now I'm here. And also on top of that, we got Ray Murphy at the Resource Center there in San Diego. So we got like the all-star team now,
Yep. Yep. That's true.
But yeah, it's a small group, but we work tirelessly to make sure that the states have what they need. And I would always encourage anyone to reach out to any of us if they have needs, if they just want to discuss an idea or see if they can get support from us. I'm all for it. There's a lot of cool ideas out there, and I'm here for them.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thanks for the update on FHWA's road weather management program. You guys have got an awful lot going on.
Absolutely, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Um, Jeremy's contact information and links to the FHWA road weather management website and the various programs and reports are listed below this video and also in the notes, so you can reach out and learn more about what's happening in the world of road weather management. Until next time, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.